everyone. Welcome to the next episode on the Event Playbook Coffee Chat series. It has been an exciting time recording 3 episodes so far, and we've talked about core things around event management and event organization, both for event managers and program managers. Now, in this episode, we go down into the actual event execution, and we're going to be talking about what no one tells you about the event day. Now, in this episode, we are joined by Chisom Jane Nkwah. Chisom is the Google certified IT and AI project manager who specializes in transforming ideas into executed realities. You see where we're going with this. She knows how to carefully blend strategy, structure, and storytelling to lead high impact tech projects and programs from concept to completion. Now, Chisom has over 3 years of cross industry experience in software, AI enhanced systems, and non-profit operations. She has successfully managed over 5 virtual and hybrid projects and events globally and in Africa as well. She knows how to carefully combine agile delivery, stakeholder alignment, and emerging technologies to make sure that she delivers results at scale. In this episode, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about on the ground event execution. It was a really fun conversation, and I can't wait for you to watch it. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to my channel.
Hi, Chisom. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. If you could please just introduce yourself and then we'll get started.
Okay. Hi, hello, Kandel. Thank you for having me. My name is Chisom Jane Nkwah, and I have over 3 years of experience in managing projects, in managing programs. And over the years, I've been able to manage 3 physical conferences that has that had over 600 participants. And I've also been able to manage a virtual conference that have over 3,500 registered participants within the space of 2 months. And I also teach project management to NGO organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sum, for mentioning that. It's also great that you included in your introductions events that you've organized and the total attendee numbers because this will greatly influence our conversation today. Like I said earlier, our conversation is going to center around on the ground event execution. We're going to be talking about behind the scenes work that goes in organizing events. We're also going to be talking about realities of event execution, the unspoken challenges, and the strategies that can help event managers and program managers stay in control, even though there is pressure while organizing the event. And this is a given because for every event, there is always some kind of pressure mounted on the event organizers or the event managers. So, I have a few questions that we're just going to talk through, and it's going to be a really interesting conversation. Now, the very first question is what is the biggest on the ground event challenge that you have ever faced?
Okay, that's a very interesting question because for every project, just as you've mentioned, there are usually hiccups here, hiccups there, in as much as you do the whole planning, the whole risk management, mitigations, and all of that. So I'm going to be speaking from the very recent physical bootcamp that I managed this year, 2025, in the month of April. So I did a tech boot camp for undergraduate students in Abia State. And the tech boot camp was just supposed to be for a few undergraduates, not a conference per se, just majorly teaching focused. And one of the biggest challenge that we faced during that particular boot camp was the fact that a night to less than 24 hours to the conference, to the boot camp rather, my some of my team members have gone over to the venue to ensure that everything is in check, right? They had wanted to, start seeing if they could set up some things against tomorrow morning. This was around 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. that the night before. And when they got there, they met some people, using the hall, saying that, oh, that we would not be able to use their sounds. We would not be able to use some of the equipment that were there. And mind you, we had already paid for it, and we've had conversations already with them about it. That's mean their leaders. We've had conversations already with them, and everything was finalized. So this was less than 24 hours to the boot camp, and I was already at home preparing for the boot camp because I had to, host my guests, and the guest speaker, one of the guest speakers there. And they were like, oh, so they were calling me. So what do we do now? And I didn't know what we should do now. At that point, it just felt like I also didn't know what should be done now. But things like this actually happen. So what I did was to call my other team member who is in charge of the venue management, and then we had to make some calls, reaching the leaders, all the so it was majorly a call to call conversation to see how we can get access to use every single thing that we had paid for to use and talked about to use. And thankfully, that particular issue was resolved. But that challenge taught me something, and it actually sharpened my skills more, my skill of being proactive. And as a program manager, there's going to be challenges. But if you're always in your feelings and you don't step out of that, oh, I'm feeling, how the project is feeling, you're not going to get the results that you desire. And it also sharpened my leadership skill because, as a program manager, you have other team members, you're not just managing the events, you're also managing people. So you have team members that are there, wanting, so what do we do next? So they're actually looking up to you, right? So it sharpened my reasoning skill a lot in order to take fast steps to do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I have also faced something similar, and it's very interesting because on a day before the event day, we met with the I think the event owners, and we were looking through every technical aspect of the event, sound, screen. We were not really worried about the chairs and all because we made sure to select chair colors and they just properly arranged everything. The screen was working fine. But in the morning, when we came to the event, something you checked the day before, I had a great level of confidence because it was a new venue. Everything is relatively new, so there should be no glitches, right? In the morning, the screen was not working at all. We did not know this. We did not know the switch to turn it on, and the technical person had like moved to another location to fix something else at their other event space. So we just did not know who to call. We did not. It was very funny. What we had to do was just to start looking for another technician or something, and the hub owners did not want any other person to work on that thing because it's a new event, so they just didn't want it to get spoiled. But after a lot of deliberations, we even had to start the event while the screen was not up and just started, engaging people so that they won't feel that so much. But when it finally started, let's just say the event went well. We were finally able to start off with the screen, but these little challenges can be very disappointing and very annoying. And I like what you said about not being in your feelings, because if you decide to think about it so much, then a lot of other things can actually go wrong. But yeah, great answer. So the other thing I want to ask is like a follow-up question. How did your team handle it? How were you able to fix it when that happened?
Okay, when that happened, I had to first of all calm my team members down to let them know. When I got the call out, they were like, "Oh, this happened." I said, "Don't worry, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to see how we're going to do it, but just give me a bit of time. I want you people to just be in the hall with me, and be in the hall for me rather." And this also goes out to say how amazing my team members are. I'm always very privileged to work with very great minds, very great leaders, right? And so they stayed in the hall, all calm. while I had to start making the calls, speaking to another, the venue manager, making calls here and there just to ensure that everything works fine. And when it finally worked and they got access, they were there till to 11 p.m., which was really so great. At 9 to 11 p.m., they were still there, and immediately everything was resolved. They did some little setup in the hall. Early in the morning the next day, my team members were already in the hall trying to sweep, because they had to clean the hall early in the morning and do a lot of setup. And just as I said, it boils down to having an amazing team and having an amazing set of people who have the same vision and passion as you are. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Good thing you mentioned. I've also been great to work with. I've also been privileged rather to work with great people who clearly carry the same visions that you carry for that particular event, and they just make everything work well. For them to stay till that time late in the night, it really shows a great level of commitment. So, cheers to Chisom's team. Okay. Yeah, so another question is also related to this first one, but then that question is, how does your team prepare for on the ground execution? I know you've given an example of a certain challenge that you faced, but what other steps, what other measures are put in place to make sure that on the event day everything goes on smoothly?
Okay. How I see how my team members can prepare for execution is, it starts from you as the program manager or the project manager for that particular event and conference, and it's the responsibility falls on you to be firstly be prepared, then your team members can be prepared. So what do I mean by that? Every team member is aware of every task for the week. We know exactly what we're supposed to do for the week to get us to our goal. Every week, every team member is working, because the whole point of execution is not just on that particular day. From the first day you start planning the event to the last day, it's more like little drops of water that make the mighty ocean, if that's what they say. Makes the mighty ocean. So it's the everyday activities that help team members to be prepared, right? So I do this by ensuring for that particular project, which is the tech boot camp. My team members knew at every point in time what we're working on. Okay, this week we're trying to secure venue. It was clear. So clear tasks, clear timelines. This week, this is what we want to do. We need to get venue between this period and this other period. Okay, we need to get refreshments for our people between this time and this time. So everybody is clear. So the underground execution for me is, I would say it's more like, and from the first day I start planning the event to the last day is the underground execution. Another thing I do to help is that I'm very visual, right? So I usually say something. Anything that is not written down somewhere is probably not happening. Right. Anything that I don't see, it's probably not happening. So I go through all my documents. I go through the documents where I've written things on what exactly that we should achieve. And then I always prioritize staying in a place where I think, right? So because of I'm very visual, I play the events in my head every time. I play the events from everybody moves in. As everybody's moving, I'm thinking, so the registration units are seated in this position of the hall. So if everybody's moving, they register. What are the possible things what can we do to make it faster? Right? Because apart from the things written in documents, it's possible that there might be some things that you might miss, right? So I visualize it. So they move into the register. How long does it take to register? What's the registration unit like? What are the registration units going to be? What are they going to be using to check? Are they using a spreadsheet? Are they using a software application to make it faster? So when they go into the hall, okay, what exactly from this day to this day, we already have our program plan. So this minute, from this minute to this minute, this is what's supposed to be happening, right? So I visualize the event again, I ruminate over it again, and I meditate on the event. I think that's the word. I meditate on it, I play it in my head. My team members are aware of how important this particular event is. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. What I hear you saying time and time again is communication. I hear you saying everyone already knows what they're supposed to do, so they should follow that line. I think there's also room for some creativity at some point. So even though they already know what they should do, the part where you mentioned being an area where you visualize how the event is going to be, I think that's what every team member actually is supposed to do or supposed to think about, because if they're able to see events in that way, they can possibly fish out some hiccups, some challenges, some blockers that will come on the way, and that would help for a smooth running throughout the event dates. And that then brings us to the next conversation, which is on backup plans. The thing is, you can never make enough backup plans, because as you're making backup plans, other things that you did not make a backup plan for are devising their own ways to come back and taunt you during the event day. So if you probably have a list or things you want to share around backup plans, what are some that you make available for your event dates?
That's actually a very interesting question, because there are times that things are going to fail no matter the way you plan them or how you want them to be, and that's just simply the truth, right? So for backup plans, which is very important, so for areas where I know that um backup plans are needed, right? It could be backup plans um for um, for programs. We have already agreed that a program is supposed to start by 9 a.m., for instance, and for whatever reason, the program doesn't start as at when due to maybe it could be technicality issue or whatever, and it starts by 10 a.m. So the next thing that comes in my mind is a backup plan. So how do we go about it? We have already told everybody that this program starts by 9 a.m. So what do we do? Do we send a message? So what I usually do is on these we do it's possible that this program might not start by 9 a.m. We're going to tell everybody that check-in starts by 9 a.m., program starts by 10 a.m. So that way we have 1 hour window period to do whether every last technicality checkup. So while everybody is registering, we're trying to organize and ensuring that we give ourselves that window space, that window thing to do, right? So for me, backup plans are something that everybody needs to have. Even media personality, I have this there was this I remember my first physical conference, not boot camp now, conference, that had to teach me when it comes to backup plan, because we had already made plans for a media personality, and the person didn't show up. And the person didn't show up, right? The person didn't show up, and that was supposed to be a major media, taking the videos, taking the pictures. So we had other videos. Now, the good thing about backup is that that was not the only person that was going to take our videos and pictures, right? But that was the main person, right? Usually, right, when it comes to media personalities, you can be like, this media person is the main person that is going to do the media, especially when it comes to videos, mashing of videos together and all of that. But the person didn't show up. The person didn't show up. And so the backup plan was to use the other media people that we had, the other media teams that we had. Now, imagine if we didn't have any other media team. Nobody will ever know the conference held. We'll only be saying, this conference held, it was good. And it will just be probably other people's pictures and videos that we'll now try to see how we can get to, which is not excellent in any manner at all. So backup plans for me are very much important. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. The thing is, if you're working with media people, you just need to have a special kind of patience. You need to have a special kind of patience because I've had my fair share of heartbreaks. The very first time that happened, I didn't know it was going to be like that. So, the next time, also one other thing to consider is budget constraints, right? Because you may not have enough to have like two or three media people who would be able to cover the event. But what I do is I mostly ask the volunteers if you have a really good phone that can at least take some pictures or make some videos before the photographer comes, please do that. And I have like two or three other persons who are on standby. They are either taking with their phones to edit later. So even if we don't get those beginning parts like the registration, even if we don't get that captured on camera, which the photographer is supposed to do ideally, the those who have already captured with their phones, we can always go back and edit and make it look like a camera took it or something, and that helps us minimize that challenge of not having enough pictures for the event right from the beginning. Because what I try to do is to capture scenes before the event actually start, things like registration, things like the speed networking. Some of these media people do not understand that those points are very important. They are very important to me personally because I like to see how everything started right to when the event now became full blown. So yeah, great things that you've shared there. One other thing that is also similar to it, which is like the next question, is last minute preparations, last minute speakers, last minute team members. How are you able to handle some of those blockers?
Okay. So for last minute speaker, we actually have a list. I always advise to have a list of backup speakers. What do I mean by that? We have speakers, that's the main speakers that we want to speak, that we want them to speak, and then we have some backup speakers written down in case these ones say no or whatever reason they cancel out. Right now, one of the ways it might sound like, how can you tell the speaker this and their face? There are situations. Now, the first situation is maybe, for instance, you have already planned that this is a speaker that is going to speak, and for some reasons, before the event, the speaker cancels out. So one of the ways that we mitigate this is that before we place a flyer for any speaker, we should have confirmed all speakers. No confirmation of no speaker, nobody's picture is going up there. They have to confirm that they are going to be available, right? And so for some reasons, the ones that we wanted them to be, if they're not available, we take them off that list and use our backup. Now, second situation is when they have confirmed their face is there, and for some reasons they are now like, they now cancel last minute. I'm not going to be available. And maybe these are like major speakers. These are like speakers that you know that the reason why people registered is because of them. So what we do is that we tell them that, why don't you do a video recording of your section? So the backup for that particular one is usually a video recording. Do a video recording of yourself, and the things that you would have wanted to, say to us, you can then say it in that video, which works out fine. Then the next one is team management. I understand that managing teams can actually be very hard, especially when it's a volunteer role, because it's not like salary that you'll be like, oh, I'm going to whatever reason not pay or anything like that. It's a volunteer role. So I also know that even as much as you do a lot of activities to help people to feel motivated, some people still don't end up doing the tasks that they're supposed to do. So my best bet usually is to work with people, the people who are very much proactive, people who want to do the tasks, focus more on them to get work done, rather than trying to carry a lot of people and a lot of load of people who do not want to be in the project. So this is how I handle that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think this is also in relation to the previous episode that I just had, where we hinted a little bit on volunteers. And my guest said she always makes a call for volunteers. And I said something that has really worked for me is using those who I know can do the work, because sometimes making a new call means that those new persons, I would have to do some training again and again, except it's in another location. But if it is in the main location, I try to use volunteers who know what to do and how to do it, and then probably place the new persons in roles that I'm probably not putting my eye in so much, right? So volunteers who will do speaker management, volunteers who will do welfare, who know how to do the work well. I make sure to use those who I've worked with before. But then other tasks like maybe on the day registration, I can probably use new volunteers for that who are looking for experience. So yeah, great points that you've mentioned. And the past 15 plus minutes have been a wonderful conversation so far on how to mitigate on ground event execution. But then, just so we can wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share? Anything you think program managers should bear in mind, or event managers, for future events they're holding and executing the event?
Okay. I think one thing I really want to say is that you're not just managing events, you're managing people. And people remember more how you made them feel. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's all about people. You're working with people to make things better for another set of people. So how you make people feel is very important, right? So rather than focusing on, oh, this person didn't do this task, focus on, oh, why are you experiencing any challenge? What's the problem? Why? Because people matter. Focusing on your team members and seeing them as people and not just people to tick a box or tick a tax. You're focusing on them as human beings also matter, because how you make people feel helps them to even execute a task. How you make people feel helps them to know how to it gives them a sense of belonging. It gives them a sense of, oh, this vision is our vision, right? This thing is our thing. So it doesn't just become your own thing, it now becomes our thing, right? So one of the things I would just really like to say is, another thing I would like to say is, anytime you think of a task, do it. Because as an execution person, one of the ways to build, this level of execution is to do it. If you think of a task, do it. Don't procrastinate. Call your team. In fact, let your team members know that if they even see your name, their mind should remind them of the tasks they're supposed to do that they've not done. If they see your name, that's what should remind them, should flog them. So be that kind of person who gets work done. Be the person that gets work done. You are there, we get work done here. There's no place of being lackadaisical or anything. So that's what I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chisom, for mentioning that. Something that has been consistent in all of the episodes so far is that event is about managing people, and I hear all of the speakers say that, and it's not a coincidence that you're saying it as well, because you also have experience organizing events. So really, events is about managing people, managing their expectations. I'm just making sure that they have a great experience during the event. So thank you so much, and that is a beautiful wrap up to our conversation so far. Thank you for coming on this chat, and there are other conversations as well. I think there's one more conversation just to wrap up the episodes that is coming up. But then, how can we connect with you? If anyone has any question or just wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Okay, I'm very much active on my LinkedIn, so you can send me a LinkedIn message. Chisom Jane Nkwah is my LinkedIn name. My email address, chisomunkwa@gmail.com. So yes, these are two very good ways to reach out to me.
All right. Thank you so much, Chiso. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to having this conversation with you again, maybe on something else aside from events, something else also relating to the other kind of work that you do. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye. Thank you for having me.